As we race our way now through Sector 3, that gap is it's coming down now between the two of them, about 3 to 4 car lengths separating them as they work their way now towards the UP hairpin, and Kabuchi will be, I think he'll be quite upset with himself that he made that small mistake going onto the back straight through turn 4, because that allowed Khatib to sneak up on through the inside.
So now it's all going to be about how Alex Khatib deals with the chase car in front of him as they battle for position. Abdulnazir Al-Hamidi has not won a race this year. In fact, he has retired twice, and he wasn't there for the last weekend. So he's had 2 finishes. One of them was a podium, but he's under massive pressure now from the championship leader, who's taken things very much in his stride in this 2020-2021 Gulf Radical Cup season. So out of the final turn, and surely Khatib is going to have the slipstream and the run on Abdulnazir Al-Hamidi over the straight. He takes the fastest lap of the race. He was half a second quicker on that last tour. And I wonder if he's just going to wait for the back straight. There's no point going banzai into the first corner when you're not sure if it's going to work. Better to line him up and prepare for another go. And a twitch there from Al-Hamidi. Surely this is going to be the move from Khatib. He's got plenty of confidence around the outside. He can have a look to the inside line, throws the car up the inside, thinks at the last minute it's going to work, and makes it stick. Good move.
And while all that action is happening on track, Ian Roberts has come into the pit lane. That was our championship leader going into Yast last weekend. And I can see James Edmeades is there, his driver coach this season, and he's looks like that car is going into the pit box. It won't be on the pit lane, so more dramas here for Ian Roberts, and he's losing valuable points here to now race leader Alex Khatib as we run right now.
So it is a perfect run for Khatib if he can just keep it together. Of course, they've still got to take the pit stops into account. Mandatory pit stop, of course, and the pit lane window, you were telling me, Chris, opens at 27 minutes into the race.
That is true, yeah. 1 to the lap, 17 minutes. We go into the pit lane for at least 45 seconds, and that's the stationary time. So that 45 seconds doesn't work with the pit in and pit out. It doesn't matter if they're rolling through. They have to be stationary for exactly 45 seconds. And depending on where they finished yesterday, so we saw Alex Khatib, we saw Tariq Kabuchi, and we saw Amir Faisalin's car on the top 3 steps of the podium. Those 3 will have to come in for 15, 10, and 5 seconds extra on top of their 45 seconds. So race leader Alex Khatib, he finished in 2nd place. He has an additional 10 seconds to his time in the pit lane. Kabuchi's behind him has just 5 seconds, and Amir Faisalin, who's down in 5th position at the moment, well, he has to be in for an additional 15 seconds, taking his stationary pit stop time to a whopping 1 minute. And it just feels like forever here on the pit lane, especially when you've got the entire field blasting past you. But Alex Khatib there across line, completing lap number 3, and now the gap is up to 1.5 seconds. Khatib is a very rapid driver, and he made mincemeat essentially of the entire field. And we started on the second to last row of the grid, and he's just shot his way through. And he shot his way through cleanly, because we saw yesterday a small incident between himself, Ian Roberts, and another driver, which called the number 7 to go sideways. And well, Alex Khatib, unfortunately, he bared the brunt of it.
It looks to me as though Amir Faisalin has managed to get himself into 4th place past Johnny Kazoum, the Lebanese. So I think he's managed to get into P4. That's going to be critical, because that 15 seconds additional stationary time is really going to hurt his chances of climbing the podium today, because obviously the 2 guys in front of him, Khatib and Kabuchi, they're going to add additional time to theirs. That doesn't mean that Al-Hamidi is out of hot water. If anything, he's really got to up the ante, because Khatib is currently setting consistent 143s. Al-Hamidi is struggling to break into the 144s consistently, so he really needs to get that rhythm and metronomic pace up. Otherwise, despite the fact that Khatib's going to be in the pit lane 10 seconds longer, he could build up that lead in the next 6 laps.
So we usually see this from Khatib. He tends to use up as much of the car as he can during the sort of opening laps of the race, and then towards the pit stop. Then we see him sort of slow down, and then when he comes in the pit lane, he's fresh as a daisy, and then off he goes again. But then as the race progresses, I think he's using up too much of his tyres. But with the gap that he has on the rest of the field, it's nothing really to worry about for the 0. Now, if we just quickly go back to Amir Faisalin, who's down in 4th position when he comes through the final corner. You just see him out of shot there, going a bit wide through the final corner. He's one of our veterans, essentially, of the series, and he's massively improved as the series has progressed. A couple of years ago, he spent some time in the British Radical series. His time's literally deducted by around 30 seconds. He really improved as the series progresses. Now, the feeling yesterday actually was his first win in the Gulf Radical Cup, which is an amazing achievement for Amir. He's massively improved. So, as we say there, pit window opens when time is elapsed 17 minutes and it closes at 26. So I think, Jake, my timing was slightly off. I do need to bring a calculator with me to these events.
It is getting more and more complicated with these endurance races, because they obviously have very clever and very, very wise regulations in order to keep the playing field open and keep it nice and spread for people. We just had the time confirmed on the monitor. Pit window will open when the elapsed time reads 17 minutes. That is just under 10 minutes from now. And it will close when the elapsed time reads 26 minutes. So they will only have 9 minutes for that pit window to open. That is essentially a 3-lap gap, essentially, across the course of those 9 minutes. Maybe a fourth, but they're going to have to be pushing it really a little bit in terms of the gamble as to whether they've left it too late. So they really need to be quite circumspect about when they make the pit stop. And Khatib, as you can see, is getting on with extending that gap. Fastest of all in the first sector. Not by much over Al Hamidi, but it's the second sector where it really counts. A 27.2 compared to a 27.5 for Al Hamidi.
And it's interesting going back to the pit lane. It's a real strategy game here in endurance racing, even in the Gulf Radical Cup. Yes, we're only racing for 45 minutes, but we've seen yesterday James Sweetnam, unfortunately, just left it a little bit too late and came in, I think it was nanoseconds before the board was actually withdrawn. That shows that the pit window is closed. And even for that, he got penalised for that, and that was a full run through the pit lane, and unfortunately further drama for him actually as the race progressed. We also saw it at Yas last time out as well, where the drivers, their strategy was just slightly off, and as Jake said, it's a really tight gap. It's only about 9 minutes between that, and it equates essentially just over 3 laps as the warning flag comes out now for car number 15. That's Samir Faisalin, who's being shown the black and white flag just underneath the starting gantry.
Can I be a bit of a Grand Prix racing nerd at the moment and just point out that Alex Khatib's car looks absolutely stunning in retro March Formula One colours. It really does look sensational, and it's clear that, you know, these drivers, one of the things I like about the Radicals, both in the UK and here in the UAE, you can really see the drivers wearing their heart on their sleeves. Obviously, yes, they're trying to get support and backing to go racing, but with these cars, they really can play a little bit. I mean, you've got the Gulf Racing colours on Abdul Nazir Al Hamidi's car. I mean, these guys are not just racing drivers because they enjoy the racing. They enjoy the sport of it as well. It's very much, you crack their arms in half and it's got motorsport written like Blackpool Rock right through their bone marrow. They really do love motor racing in this part of the world. And it's great to see that the enthusiasm and the passion for the sport is ringing out even in the colour schemes of the cars.
It certainly is. As we continue on now, we just elapsed 10 minutes. Race leaders Alex Khatib right there in that vibrant teal colour. He's actually sort of evolved that car over the current seasons. I remember last year he ran a full black livery, or even a sort of quieter version of what we see here. Now, this year he's come in. He's always been a driver to watch out. He's always been very rapid, and now he comes in with not just a rapid pace but a loud paint job as well, which really means that Alex Khatib is here and he means business, and he's looking for his first championship here in the 2020 to 2021 Gulf Radical Cup. So, lap 6 in the books, quickest through sector 3, Alex Khatib. More purple times there, Jake.
Yeah, he's definitely doing a grand job. It's the first sector where he seems to be a little bit lackluster though. He can't quite nail that move through the second and third corner, that chicane. He's struggled there all weekend. I was watching it yesterday. He's quick through there, but he doesn't seem to quite have the apexes nailed. The car seems a little bit squirrely. He often misses his braking points, and I've seen him drift wide a few times. So once he gets to this part of the circuit, he's in his element. He's absolutely nailed to the road like a slot car, and he doesn't really deviate from the racing line or from the apexes. He never misses a braking point. It's that first sector where it's a little bit dustier, where it's a little bit harder to gain control of the car, where he's really being caught out. And this is interesting because we've got obviously the pit stop's coming, and he's going to have to carry 10 seconds more than the guy behind him, Al Hamidi. Kabuchi will have to take 5 seconds more, so Khatib could fall to third. We've had another interesting, now this is an interesting way, we've had another notice here. Overtaking manoeuvre of car 0 over 76, that's Khatib on Al Hamidi, will be investigated after the race.
Well, from our point of view, it looked rather clean in there. There must have been something the stewards have seen. They've zoomed in and they've seen maybe more than we have. I mean, Alex Khatib's car, when it comes through, it's rather clean on the right hand side, which is where he made the move, because obviously he dived to the inside going down towards turn 10. He made the move stick, but maybe the steward saw something. Maybe he was a bit too far over the lines. I'll have to wait and see, but of course that'll be under investigation after the race, and I don't think really Khatib wants to have another 10-second penalty applied to his time.
No, that's pretty much the only consolation that Ian Roberts might be able to take from this second race, in the sense that his main championship rival might be about to get another penalty this weekend. That's not going to sit well with Alex Khatib. From his point of view as a racing driver, you know, Al Hamidi had drifted, he had twitched a little bit through the first corner, he had lined him up that's got me thinking one of two things. Maybe they've judged that he started that overtaking move by going very wide out of the first corner and just tripped a wheel or two over that white line. If they think he's made the move because of track limits, that could have flagged them a little bit. The other school of thought is that while it looked to us from this angle, this particular camera, as a clean move, perhaps he's forced Al Hamidi just slightly offline and basically given him no room at all to negotiate, and he's just battered him out of the way. We didn't see any physical contact, but there could well have been. So it is an interesting one as we watch Marcus Bamberg trying to chase after Johnny Kazoum, who is still there in 5th position, but yeah, interesting times for Alex Khatib. Of course, at this point, he doesn't even know that this investigation's going on. He's doing his own race. So I'm really hoping that the mechanics, they don't tell him at the pit stop. Why bother him with it? Why sweat him out with it? He's just got to focus on his race. He can't think about what the stewards' conversations are right now.
And of course, in the Gulf Radical Cup, there's no team radios here. There's no any telemetry or data being shared while the drivers are out on track. As Jake said, they'll be relayed the information once they're stationary for 45 seconds, and can imagine Alex won't be quite so happy. I don't think his penalty was applied actually from yesterday's race before the pit stop, so I don't think the team relayed the information, so he just kept going. And maybe he sort of assumed it would be there because he just kept going faster and faster, and he eventually put in about 8 seconds between him. No, actually, he came down to 4 seconds actually at the line, because he was 11 seconds back from Tarek Kabuchi when he came across the line. But James Winslow, very quick driver, but unfortunately not here today. He raced yesterday, was on the top step of the podium with Amir Faisalun. And speaking of Amir Faisalun, on the previous lap he did a 1:44.597, which was his personal best. He got more personal bests as well. Johnny Kazoum doing a 1:45.148 in the 5, and a 1:45.242 for Marcus Bamberg in the 25. Now that gap's kind of coming down now. It's 1.9 seconds separating Kazoum and Bamberg, so that's one we're going to keep an eye on here.
Yeah, the victory for Amir Faisalun yesterday, it's a double-edged sword now, because he's currently in 4th position, but he's only about 10 seconds is the gap between Kazoum, Bamberg and Al-Sabah behind him. So that 15 seconds extra stationary time he's got to take in the pit lane, that's going to drop him to the back of the field. So he really needs to focus on nailing every lap he possibly can in this first stage, or at least setting himself up for qualifying lap after qualifying lap in the second half of the race, because he's going to lose so much time to Kazoum, Bamberg and Al-Sabah. He's basically got to hope that they fluff their stop, because otherwise he is going to fall from 4th to 7th, and there's nothing he can do about it. He's going to have to do his overtaking moves on the road. The positive for him is that he is quicker than Al-Sabah quite consistently, but he's not much faster than Kazoum and Bamberg, so it's going to be very tough for him to get himself back into that 5th place.
And more green sector times on going through sector 2, especially for Abdel Nasser Al Hamidi, to 27.3. He's about a 1/10 of a second from Alex Khatib there, so it looks like Abdel Nasser Al Hamidi is sort of getting into the groove now, and he's sort of starting to settle down, but he's still losing ground to the race leader. The gap now up to 5.7 seconds, but a personal best on that lap of 1:42.686, and he's lapping about 4/10 of a second slower compared to our race leader. As Amir Faisalun across the line with a 1:44.806, green through sector 2 as well with a 28.0. His times are coming down as he starts to settle in now, but it's going to be disrupted in about a minute's time, because that's when the pit window will open, and that's where things are going to get a little hectic, and that's where the strategies are going to start to play in. And it'll be interesting to see how these strategies actually play for all the drivers, because as we said, a few have extra time in the pit lane, including Amir Faisalun. We'll have to see when he comes in. I presume actually he's going to come in sooner rather than later, so he loses that time to the rest of the field, and then sort of he's on his way for the second half. Alex Khatib, I presume, actually will leave it to the last minute, because he's a very rapid driver, so he's going to want to put as much time between himself and the number 76 as he can, and he goes quickest through sector 2 with a 27.2.
Yeah, and he kind of needs to, because he's only got 5.7 on Al Hamidi. This is going to be a fascinating battle, these two. We're just watching Amir Faisalun, but before that we were watching Johnny Kazoum and Marcus Bamberg. They're going to have a race in the pit lane, because there's only about 1.5 seconds between them on track. They're matching each other solidly for pace. This man's trying to pull away from them, because he knows he's going to be in the pits 15 seconds longer than them. So that's an interesting battle that's going to become the race for 4th position ultimately, the way things currently stack up. So this is going to get interesting. Pit window open.
And it is, and it came at the perfect time as well, because how it works in the Gulf Radical Cup, as there are no teams that are relaying information, there's no sort of communication whatsoever between the driver, only the pit lane. And what the marshals do here and the stewards is they stick out a ball that says the pit window is open, and in the Gulf Radical Cup the driver must see that before coming into the pit lane. And it came out at literally the perfect time for Alex Khatib, because he came right through the final corner, and there it was in front of him. But as we said, I presume he'll come in later rather than now.
Chris, I've spotted a marshal on the start-finish line with a black and white flag. Now, they're also holding a board with a number on it. I'd be very intrigued to see which number that is, because from what we've seen on screen, there isn't anybody in particular who has done anything. I wonder if there's two cars that have actually been identified.
It looked like two, and one of them would look like a single digit as well. So it's either Alex Khatib or Johnny Kazoum, but that, as you said, has just been withdrawn, and nothing's popped up on our timing screen, so we can't tell you who that was for. It might appear later on, but as you said, there were at least two numbers. The one at the top was a single digit, the one at the bottom was double digit. Now, we did see briefly one for a driver further down the field for track infringements, but that's been revoked after 3 laps. So the pit window is open. As we said, it'll be very interesting now to see who comes through first, as Alex Khatib works his way through turn 15 and down towards turn 16. He's not coming in, as we presumed. Now we keep an eye on the 76, and the Golf liveried Golf Radical Cup car also decides to stay out. And will we see Tarek Kabuchi in? I don't think so. I think he'll wait. No, he's coming in. Yes, he is. The first taker of the pit lane is Tarek Kabuchi from 3rd overall, and because of his finishing position, 50 seconds in the pit lane.
That's a really sensible decision for Tarek. He could be the first one to come in and get himself into a rhythm before the other two, and this is actually a really smart manoeuvre for him to come in before the leaders, because he's only got 5 seconds in addition, so he can get himself balanced out on the circuit. The other two, obviously he's going to really struggle to overhaul Al Hamidi, but he's not racing Al Hamidi in this race anymore. He's racing Alex Khatib for 2nd position, so to pit in before him actually gives him a little bit of an advantage. And we've also got the two men battling together, Johnny Kazoum and Marcus Bamberg. They're coming in the pits together as well, so it really is going to be a race of the pit stops, because they're going to do it at the same time.
It certainly will, but I think Bamberg saw Kazoum come in, and instead of saying, oh, I'll wait another lap, I'll get the position from you, let's have a shootout out of the pit lane. So there they are, stopped in place for 45 seconds. The team's having a quick look around the car, because of course Kabuchi will be there for an additional 5 seconds, and that means we have now 4 cars currently circulating. Amir Faiz-Loon decided to stay out. Now that's quite interesting. I would have thought he would come in sooner rather than later. Mohammed Sabah Al-Sabah is currently circulating in 7th, the Kuwaiti driver, and he is currently in Sector 1. And I'd be surprised if he stays out long as well. Let's see as Khatib works his way through the bowl. Will he decide to come into the pit lane now? Yes, he does, as he sticks to the right-hand side through the corner. Now it's up to the man that's in 2nd place, because of course I think out of all of them at the moment, he's probably got the best chance of taking the lead at the race.
Yeah, it's interesting, because Khatib essentially now had to react. He wouldn't have known, of course, that Kabuchi had made the pit stop, because as you say, there's no pit to radio communications, but he had to do it early because he's carrying that extra 10 seconds. So it makes sense for him not to leave it to the last minute, because it gives him a little bit more time in the second half of the race to make some of that ground back up again. He's got more time to play with if he pits earlier. So into the pits comes Alex Khatib, and that hands the lead to this man, Abdulnazir Al Hamidi. Now, from his point of view, he doesn't need to panic here. He's got that 5 seconds in hand over Alex Khatib, so he can just keep balancing his race. He can still do a decent job. He doesn't have to push too hard. All the pressure is on Khatib. He's the one who's got to try and extend that lead in the championship over Ian Roberts. So Khatib is the man under pressure, not Abdulnazir Al Hamidi. He can just keep driving his race.
That he can, as you said, Abdulnasser Al Hamidi is already side by side actually going through into turn 10. Now, let's keep it clean, boys, as we work our way through there. Don't want to mess up your race just yet. For the number 76 is into the pit lane comes the 88.
Now that is Mohammed Al-Sabah, so the Kuwaiti driver comes in from what is effectively now P3, because of course Khatib came into the pits, but Khatib came in on the same lap. So Al-Sabah should fall to 6th position. The difficulty now is going to be for Abdulnazir Al Hamidi. He's in traffic. He's actually lapping Johnny Kazoum and Marcus Bamberg, who've just had their pit stops. So he will take them. They will be unlapped again when Al Hamidi makes his pit stop. But this is holding him up. This is not good. He's being a little bit balked there by the number 5 of Johnny Kazoum. So Al Hamidi essentially now needs to pit. So he does. He takes the decision, right, I'm in traffic. This is not going to help. I'm going to pit.
Here we should have a new race leader. No, it's still showing that Alex Khatib is, because he's finished 12 laps, as Abdulnasser comes into the pit lane here. He will be across the line. Race leader having completed 13 laps indeed. And now this is where he doesn't. This is crucial. He doesn't need a mess up here. He needs to do a pitch perfect pit stop here. 45 seconds exactly, stationary, and then he needs to be on the pit lane speed limiter and out as quick as he can, at least under that 60 kilometers an hour bracket.
Yeah, the big question is how much time did he lose getting stuck behind Johnny Kazuma and Marcus Bamberg? That's going to be what wins this race. For Alex Khatib, he needs to step on it. He needs to really push hard to gain back that 10 seconds additional penalty time in the pits from taking second place yesterday. And Khatib is on it. He is in the third sector now already. So we need to look down and see how Abdulnazir Al-Hamidi's pit stop is going.
He's not been released yet. He's still there.
So it looks as though he got held up big time, because now Khatib is surely going to beat him out of the pits. They're now waiting to signal him out. I think they're holding him a little too long. They need to get this done quickly, but Khatib has been stepping on it. Khatib is going to take the lead back.
And indeed, is Abdul Nasser very slow out of the pit lane there, and down to second place he goes. And I have a feeling, actually, that being stuck behind Bamberg and not getting past Johnny Kazuma, he's coming out of the bowl complex, so that really slowed Abdul Nasser Al-Hamidi down. As we did see him, they were quite close as they were going down towards turn 10, and it looked like Abdul Nasser made quick on Bamberg on the inside, but it was Johnny Kazuma that held him up, and it looks like he may have lost second place. But let's wait for the pit stop cycle to sort of finish up here, and let's see if there are any penalties to be sorted out, because if I'm honest, Alex's pit stop time seemed a bit too quick, but that could be just me over-optimising without a calculator.
Yeah, it's certainly a massive difference, isn't it? He came out of the pits a good 10 seconds clear of Abdulnazir Al-Hamidi. Now, either Al-Hamidi had a problem in the pits and lost a massive amount of time stuck behind Kazuma and Bamberg, or there's been a tiny bit of foul play from Khatib's pit crew. So that's worth pointing out.
And I see Mir Faisalan is leaving it to the last minutes here to bring his number 15 into the pit lane. Of course, he'll be in the pit lane for the longest of all, that additional 15 seconds. He's going to be sat there. And it's quite warm here today as well for the drivers. Although AC, it is an open-air cockpit, but it is still warm here in the United Arab Emirates. We're just about to hit lunchtime, and I can imagine Mir Faisalan is going to be boiling hot in that race suit as he sits there. The black paint job doesn't help.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's not exactly helpful that he chose a black paint job to go racing. Never race in a black racing car in the United Arab Emirates, because it's not good for the sunshine.
So that's all the drivers into the pit lane, so we'll just wait for the pit stop cycle now to conclude. We can see where everyone is as Khatib is across the line, and well, let's have a quick look at what this gap is, because it looks quite significant between the 0 and the 76. As across the line now should come the 76. Indeed he does, and the lap it is 11.6 seconds. So that gap was, what, 5 seconds when they came in? That's a massive disadvantage for Abdul Nasser Al-Hamidi, because he looked poised to take the lead.
Well, either a really bad session behind Kazuma and Bamberg. I doubt he lost 5 seconds worth, because their lap times are only about half a second off the pace of Amir Faisalan and Tariq Kabuchi, so they're not exactly sluggish. So it is interesting. Did the crew forget to add the 10 seconds onto Khatib's pit stop time? Because that's a big disadvantage. He was 5 seconds in hand. To lose that additional 10 seconds, he should be 5 seconds back, not 10 seconds, 11 seconds ahead.
True that. And pit window now is officially closed. The good news is that all the drivers have been in and out. Amir Faisalan is shown as the race leader, but it's certainly gone the way of Alex Khatib, Abdul Nasser Al-Hamidi, and I think we'll have Tariq Kabuchi in third place, and that will put Amir Faisalan into fourth, adding some more points to his championship hunt, but he needs to start outscoring Alex Khatib, which is no easy feat in the Gulf Radical Cup. A very, very fast driver indeed, maybe possibly even too fast, as the race leader works his way through the final quarters now. Through turn 15 we go, or as we'll call it here because we're using the international circuit, we'll call it turn 10. As down towards turn 11 comes the race leader.
And yet again, you know, this is a situation for Alex Khatib. Yes, there might be a little bit of a query about what's happening, but he can't focus on that. He's just got to do his race. He's got to extend the gap. He's got to keep pushing. He's in a position where essentially, you know, he will want to save face from yesterday. He got a penalty yesterday. He had the win on the road. From his point of view, this race is now about saving face and showing everybody what he should have won yesterday. So he's there now to get this race won. He's 12.6 ahead of Al-Hamidi, so he's pulling away to the tune of a second per lap. That's very impressive pace considering how competitive this field is. So Khatib is making good work and making hay while the sun shines.
And it looks like Amir Faisalan won't just lose fourth place now. He's going to lose fifth and well, 4th and 5th. He's not going to lose 6th because he's going to come out in 6th position. He's working his way through the bowl complex now. And the great battle is still on between Johnny Kazum and Marcus Bamberg. Now this is for 4th and 5th place now. It was a position change further down, but these two have not left each other's sight. There's about 2 car lengths separating the two of them as they're across the line. Gap of just 0.4 of a second. And quickest of the two there actually is Marcus Bamberg at a 25.
Now that is interesting. He's a good half second quicker in the 2nd sector, although Kazum does seem to be quicker in the 3rd sector. They're about even in sector 1, so that does give us an interesting indication that different parts of the circuit suit Johnny and Marcus a little bit differently, so they're going to have to really concentrate in these last 16.5 minutes. There is number 10, Tariq Kabuchi, 3rd position at the moment, half a minute back from Alex Khatib, but still looking good for some solid points there in 3rd position, and that's all going to help in the standings.
And race leader now 12.6 seconds up the road from Abdul Nasser Al Hamidi, and that gap is extending as the race clocks down to what 45 minutes elapsed, as Jake said, just under 16.5 minutes to go on the clock as race leader crossed the line. But this battle for 4th position is really grabbing our attention here as Marcus Bamberg is trying to find a way through and past Johnny Kazum. But as Jake said, through sector 2 is where Marcus Bamberg sort of drops back, and then he starts gaining in sector 3. So I have to keep a close eye to see if Bamberg can find a way through as they work their way towards the bowl complex.
Bit of a handy little battle this. It's not really let up since the start, has it? Johnny Kazum versus Marcus Bamberg, and it's going to be a case of who blinks first, essentially. In the heat of the United Arab Emirates sun, it's going to be very, very interesting to see which of those drivers cracks first. Here's Alex Khatib with the Leighton House teal colours on his Radical, looking very serene out in front. Here's Abdul Nasser Al Hamidi. Now, he cannot let the pressure go here. He's had 2 finishes only this year, so he really needs to put some points on the board. But being up in 2nd place, that's going to be his best performance of the season. And if anything should happen to Alex Khatib up front, he is right there to take his first win of the season.
That is the case here for the number 76 as we go back now to the battle between the 5 and 25 as they work their way through the final corner. About 2 car lengths separated to them. Actually, that's going through turn 1 because they've just gone across the line now. They're separated by 0.6 of a second, so Bamberg has lost 0.1 of a second on that lap, but he's sticking with the man that's in 4th place, and of course that was the battle for 5th not too long ago. Now that's the battle for 4th. Further up the field, the gap up front is 14.8 seconds between Khatib and Al Hamidi, and then it's a further 21.5 seconds back to Tariq Kabuchi. And on that previous lap, I'm not mistaken, Tariq Kabuchi did his personal best with 1:43.435. So he's going quick, but he's not going as quick as the race leader. He's certainly quick. He's lapping faster compared to Abdul Nasser Al Hamidi, who did a 1:44.384. So it looks like Kabuchi's about 0.9 of a second faster in comparison to the man that's in 2nd place. And the battle here is getting very close there between the 5 and 25. There was literally, I think there's less than half a Radical separating the two of them coming through the corner there.
So that's going to get pretty spicy. He was just looking at the championship standings ramifications after Ian Roberts' retirement, after his dominant display at Yaz. He's not really in danger of losing his points advantage. So he's going to stay in 2nd in the points tally no matter what happens in this race, especially thanks to him finishing 5th yesterday to get an extra 10 points on the bank. So he's all right in terms of his 2nd place status in the championship standings. Khatib is certainly about to take a massive dent in his chances of taking the title. This is going to get spicy. Here's Marcus Bamberg, and he's got Johnny Kazum on the run down the main straight.
And he looked like he had a good run going out into turn 16, but Johnny Kazum just shut the door on him going down, and Marcus Bamberg had to let off the throttle there and hard on the brakes just to make sure that he doesn't go in the back of Johnny Kazum, because it's a great battle that's brewing here between the two of them. It's a bit longer now. Oh, and a little bit of a slide there from Marcus Bamberg going through turn 1. A little bit too late on the brakes there.
So he was obviously pushing very hard to try and gain the ground on Johnny Kazum. He could see where the Lebanese racer was a little bit weak and vulnerable on the exit of turn 1, so he thought he would make a move to try and close up the gap. That's Mo Al-Sabah, the Kuwaiti driver, still in 7th place behind Amir Fazulin. But this is going to get interesting. Kazum is now on the defensive. Marcus Bamberg has got all the cards up his sleeve here as the man chasing the guy in front.
And I can see where Marcus is strong now, because he looks very strong coming out of the bowl complex. He had the run on Kazum going through the corner, but Kazum making that Radical as wide as he can and just shut the door. I mean, he did the same thing going down towards the final corner. Now they're into the UP building hairpin. That's turn turn 7, excuse me, at the moment, and looks like Marcus is not close enough to make a move. Marcus runs a bit wide there, but now it's down towards the bowl complex. We'll see now if Marcus Bamberg can sneak up on the inside, or will Johnny Kazum shut the door again, or will Marcus Bamberg try the harder way and go around the outside? Not quite. They both break as early as they can, and Marcus Bamberg really closes in there, working his way through the bowl complex. He's got a run on him. No, he doesn't. He has to choose the slot behind him as they go through the right-hander down towards turn 16. About 2 car lengths separating the two of them. They work their way through the final corner.
This battle continuing the way it is between Kazum and Bamberg, it's fascinating because we see this dynamic every time, every lap. One of them is stronger in Sector 2, the other one's stronger in Sector 3, so it's like they're passing the ball, they're swapping sector times, and yet, try as he might, Bamberg is still stuck staring at the rear end of Johnny Kazum's car, unable to make that move on the inside line. Watch as they come through the first corner. They've got slightly different driving lines as Bamberg takes the car slightly wider out, but that gains him a little bit more momentum in terms of speed, but it costs him in traction, so he loses a little bit of grip as he comes up towards the next chicane. So it's a counterproductive measure because he gets slightly faster in terms of pace, but he loses quite a lot in terms of traction. So it's stalemate between these two at the moment.
And then when it comes to the back straight, this is where Marcus Bamberg starts to close in, because of course he's in the toe of the number 5, down towards the very tight right-hander here. Marcus closes as close as he dares, but just can't quite find a way on the inside of Johnny Kazum. As they work their way now back up to the UP building hairpin. Again, will Marcus Bamberg try and sneak up on the inside? We can just see their position outside of our box here, and it looks like Bamberg's not close enough to make a move. As that was Abdulnasser Al-Hamidi there across the line. 20.4 seconds adrift now. He's losing a lot of ground to Alex Khatib.
Yeah, Khatib is in his stride now. He's got that metronomic pace. He's on his own. He doesn't have to worry about a thing. Just coming back to the Kazum Bamberg thing, I've noticed he started to go for overtaking moves when he's about 12 car lengths back. Now, that's not an overtaking move. He's basically playing the psychologist's game here. He's trying to get into Johnny Kazum's head. He's trying to remove him from the equation. Basically, he's trying to second guess where Kazum's going to brake. If he keeps staring at the rear view mirrors, he's really going to struggle to hold that momentum. So Bamberg thinks, right, I'm not close enough. I can't get close enough. So I need to get in his head. I need to really start to wind him up. And this is the only way I'm going to beat him now, is if I start to irritate him. If he starts thinking, well, is he going to make a banzai at the inside? Is he not? He probably isn't. But that still starts to make you, as a racing driver, it second guesses where you're going to place the car. It second guesses where your braking point's going to extend to. It's where mistakes creep in. So Bamberg is essentially trying to wind him up.
I can imagine that helmet is getting very thick on the head of Johnny Kazum, and I wouldn't be surprised sooner or later if we see those wing mirrors and rear view mirror accidentally fall off the car, so he doesn't have to worry too much. But a very, very defensive drive here from Johnny Kazum. It's pulling them back from Tarek Kabuchi, but they're still locked in that battle, and it keeps going between 0.2 of a second to 0.4 of a second, and vice versa. Marcus is quicker on one lap, and then it goes the way of Johnny Kazum, because of course Bamberg is trying his damnedest to get through on the inside, but Johnny Kazum's radical has to be the widest radical I've ever seen.
This guy is really starting to prove to be the driver of the race for me, to be fair. He's had a lot of pressure on him coming into it. He's had 2 DNFs and 2 reasonable finishes, but nobody would really have expected him to be a contender for the win based on his current season form. So he's pulled something really special out of the bag here. He's competed with the likes of Khatib and Kabuchi in terms of raw pace in the early stages. He kept himself in the hunt. You kind of expect Khatib, once he's managed to get that upper hand, to extend the gap and drive away. But that hasn't phased Al-Hamidi at all. He's just got himself into a comfortable position, a good rhythm. He's not really pushed. Oh dear. Marcus Bamberg very nearly sliding around like a top there as he tries to get a little bit faster on the acceleration out of the hairpin. But this is now giving Johnny Kazum a lot of homework.
It certainly is, and Tarek Kabuchi is now slowly clawing in the gap between himself and Abdulnasser Al-Hamidi. However, 18.1 seconds is going to be quite a tough ask with about 8.5 minutes to go on the clock. But Tarek Kabuchi there, scoring points where it matters. But championship rival, of course, is outscoring him. He'd like to be further up the field, but just not this weekend. I think he's going to have to wait till the next round as the battle continues to rage on here between 4th and 5th place, Johnny Kazum and Marcus Bamberg, and the gaps come down once again to 0.2 of a second.
He's a racer here who really needs to be wise here. He needs to be sensible. He's got 8 minutes to do this, and he's only a couple of tenths of a second behind. That's less than the length of a radical. So he's got to be patient. You can't just banzai in with 7.5 minutes to go. You've got to keep him guessing. You've got to keep him in limbo. As far as Johnny Kazum is concerned, He's got all the mistakes to make here. It's up to Bamberg, but he doesn't need to rush this. He's got plenty of time. He can just sit behind Kazum, let him make all the mistakes. You don't even need to try for an overtaking move at this point. Just sit behind him. Just let him do all the work.
And of course, with these two squabbling in fourth position, this is giving now Amir Faizoulin a chance to sort of catch up now, because he's got no one behind him, and the battle is about 10 seconds up the road, and we're keeping a close eye on that. That's coming down slightly as the laps tick by, and no doubt we might see not just a two-way battle for fourth place, we might see a three-way scrap to the line between the number 5, 25 and 15.
So here we go. Bamberg, look, he came from a long way back there, and he did a sort of a fake slalom banzai move into the inside. Now, he knew he wasn't going for an overtake, but that just gives Johnny Kazum a little bit of a hesitation. Is he going for it? Is he not? And he's got to respond. These cars are fragile. They're delicate. You can't afford to go banging wheels with them. So it's Johnny Kazum now under pressure, but Bamberg is making him make mistakes.
Interesting to see what's going to happen now going down towards turn 1 as the gap sort of closes in now. It's up now to 0.4 of a second from that move that Bamberg trying to make going into the bowl as down at the first corner, heavy on the brakes for Johnny Kazum, takes a nice tight inside line, but so does Marcus Bamberg. Very similar driving lines going through there, but just a bit too wide going through turn 2 for Marcus Bamberg, but now it comes to sector 2, and this is where Bamberg starts to close in again, and then we see even more action from the two when they go into sector 3 as Tarek Kabuchi circulating in a lonesome third for the time being, 17.4 seconds behind Abdelnasser Al Hamidi. And that time's actually come back, so it was 18 seconds not too long ago, but 6 minutes to go. He's definitely not got enough time to challenge for second place.
So Bamberg again just trying to keep Johnny Kazum guessing. That's how he's going to beat him. Just under 6 minutes left. There is your leader, Alex Khatib, on lap 23, just storming away. Really enjoying life in the lead of the race here, but now we've still got this Kazum versus Bamberg run for fourth position. The top three are all sorted, signed, sealed and delivered essentially, but now it's about Kazum versus Bamberg. There's nothing between them in terms of lap time. Johnny Kazum's best time is a 1:45.148. Bamberg's a 1:45.142. There's nothing in it.
Very evenly matched for the two of them here that are scrapping for fourth place, and on that previous lap was a 1:45.365 for Johnny Kazum and a 1:45.590 for Marcus Bamberg. So as we said, 0.2 of a second slower on that lap as they work their way down towards turn 16. And the man in second place also having a lonesome racer at the moment, 27.3 seconds behind Alex Khatib, and Tarek Kabuchi is a further 16.8 seconds. That gap's it's coming down, but not as a rapid pace as we thought. Now the gap is between Johnny Kazum and Marcus Bamberg is 0.3 of a second, and wow, this is some fantastic racing from the Gulf Radica Cup. Never disappoints.
What this does as well in the championship standings ranks is Kabuchi's set for third, Faizoulin is set for sixth, so that's going to tighten them back up again in terms of the points they've scored this weekend. They'll get a little bit closer to Ian Roberts, but essentially those two will still be neck and neck in the hunt for third place. So Ian Roberts and the crew have got to get themselves sorted for the next round, because they can't afford to be off the pace. They can't afford any more mechanical gremlins. He had a double win, of course, in round 3 and 4, race 3 and 4, so they need to get back to that pace. Otherwise, Khatib is going to run away with it, and he's suddenly going to find he's not even going to be the vice champion.
Well, Ian Roberts, unfortunately, drama early on, just completed 2 laps, brought the car in, and it was immediately taken into the pit box, and we haven't seen the car resurface. Even if they were to get it out now, they wouldn't have enough time. So I think the garage door does look closed. I think it's done and dusted. Ian Roberts' race weekend is over, unfortunately, and it's going to be a race weekend to forget for the British driver. Alex Khatib continues to lead, though, by 28.4 seconds, and Abdelnasser Al Hamidi, well, he's going to have to settle for third as Tarek Kabuchi, second, excuse me, because Tarek Kabuchi is running in third place, and Kabuchi is across line with 16 seconds, and James, that's interesting, but it's not for the car that we thought it would be for.
No, indeed. There is a 10-second penalty that will be applied after the race to Amir Faizoulin for repeated track infringement. So he has gone over the line of what is acceptable through this race in terms of track limits one too many times. You only get 3 warnings before you get sanctions handed out to you. So Amir Faizoulin is going to drop behind Mo Al-Sabah, and that's going to drop into 7th place. Now that's going to give Tarek Kabuchi an amazing advancement in terms of the points he'll score compared to Faizoulin, and it's not going to do the Russian any favours at all in snatching third in the Drivers' Championship.
It certainly won't, and that's not good news for Amir Faizoulin. Of course, won yesterday's race with driving with James Winslow, and it's his first win as well, to have now a 10-second penalty be applied, and that must have been what we saw on the pit wall not too long ago, sort of around the time the pit window was open. And we did see digits, but nothing came up on our screen, so Well, we've finally got an answer for you there about what that was all about. So it is still Alex Khatib out in front. He's just completed lap number 24 with a time of 1:42.452. And interesting enough now for Alex Khatib, he's actually coming onto the back marker traffic now because he's slowly starting to catch the 88. He's still a corner or two behind him. I don't think it'll be too much of an issue because obviously the gap between himself and Abdul Nasser Al-Hamidi is around 20-odd seconds. But still, it'll be interesting to see if Alex Khatib gets stuck now behind the 88. I mean, there is far more than a corner now separating the two of them. They're on the long back straight down through turn 5 on the international circuit here at the Dubai Autodrome. Of course, we're using the full circuit here, or that circuit anyway, for every race here this weekend.
And it's wonderful to see how these guys have taken to it so perfectly. I mean, they know this circuit very well. Most of the track days they do are on various different amalgamations of this circuit. The two drivers that impressed me the most in this race, you're looking at one of them, Abdulnazir Al-Hamidi, had all the reasons to make mistakes and get it wrong, and he just hasn't. He's just been totally in the sync of things, totally in rhythm, and in the blink of the two eyes on the front of that Radical, he's just disappeared well clear of Tariq Kabuchi. I think he's going to hang on to that second place, no problem at all. The other man who's been really impressive is the man in front of these two, Johnny Kazoum. You know, Marcus Bamberg has thrown everything bar the kitchen sink at that number 5, and he hasn't let up once. If anything, he's now just started to take the momentum and build on that confidence, and he's starting to stretch the gap a little bit. Kazoum is now a second clear nearly of Marcus Bamberg, so Marcus has tried every trick in the book. It hasn't worked. Johnny has stood firm, and he's actually looking good for 4th place now.
So we just started the final lap of the race, and well, Alex Khatib is doing it in style on the penultimate lap, going fastest of all, a 1:42.069. He doesn't really need to go very fast now. He doesn't need to use too much of his car. He can sort of casually just drive around the Dubai Autodrome here and doesn't have to worry too much because the gap is about 30 seconds between himself and Abdullah Nasser Al-Hamidi. But it's Alex Khatib. He's going to show everyone what he's capable of, and as we said at the beginning, a very rapid driver indeed. So this is indeed the final lap of the race here, as race leader on the back straightaway now, down towards turn 5 we go here for the final time, and he's closing in on Mohammed Al-Sabah as they work their way now through the second half of the track. And as you say, that battle is still brewing, but Marcus Bamberg's now dropping back. It's almost a second actually separating these two coming through, and I think Marcus Bamberg may have used too much of his car up by now, and it looks like 4th place is going the way of Johnny Kazoum. But 5th place, still very respectable for Marcus Bamberg, and a valiant effort indeed from the British driver. Cannot fault him anywhere there as they work their way through the final corner now.
Yeah, Bamberg's doing a fine job of continuing to hustle Johnny Kazoum, but he's just not cracking under the pressure. He's just keeping it very nicely lit around the course. So from Kazoum's point of view, this is going to be Bamberg's last chance as they go into the last lap. Cue some rather desperate manoeuvring from Johnny Kazoum as Alex Khatib is coming into the final corner to take a brilliant victory. He is going to get a little bit held up by Mo Al-Sabah, but I don't think it's going to cause much of an issue. The checkered flag is going to fly, and it's Alex Khatib who takes the win here in the Radical Golf Cup. Brilliant.
Another well-deserved victory there for Alex Khatib, and more points added to his championship hunt here for the 2020 to 2021 Golf Radical Cup Series. Like we said, a well-deserved victory there, but we cannot fault the man that's finishing in second place as he's working his way through the ball. As Jake said, a very, very good show here for the number 76. He's had disastrous weekends throughout the series so far. To bring the car home in second today in the 76 Golf livery car, a very, very good effort here from Abdul Nasser Al-Hamidi.
So now it's all about Johnny Kazoum trying to hang on. There is Al-Hamidi, second position from him. Brilliant, brilliant run. And he's delighted with that. Look, he storms across to the pit wall to celebrate with his mechanics. A brilliant performance from him. Good solid drive from Tariq Kabuchi as well there in 3rd position. A good performance from him, and that is good points banked as well compared to his main rival Amir Fazulin, who's going to get that 10-second penalty. But what about Kazoum versus Bamberg? Is something going to kick off in the last lap? Because they still have at least a sector of the course to negotiate. And look, Kazoum is just a mile ahead. He's doing a great job.
He certainly is through the bowl complex now, through the final few corners. It looks like Marcus Bamberg will have to settle for 5th position here, unless he tries to break as late as he dares going down towards the final corner here. I don't think he can get that inside line because Johnny Kazoum has just been so strong through the final corner and throughout the second half of the race. Did an amazing job from both of these drivers as they're across the line now in 4th place and 5th respectively for Marcus Bamberg. Then we wait for Amir Fazulin, who is currently working his way through the final corner now. He'll have that 10-second penalty applied to him, which will drop him down to 7th. although he comes across the line in 6th. But let's actually wait to see how far back Mohamed Al Sama is, because Alex Khatib has found his way past and he's
completed another lap.
He has indeed. I think he might have been a bit confused there, because with the 8.8 in front of him, because the 8.8's come in already, he actually hasn't taken the checkered flag. So a little bit of a confusion here going on. I think it wasn't the most ideal situation actually coming across the line, because we had race leader and we had backmarker traffic behind them. So confusion all around.
Yeah, Mo Al-Sabah doesn't... well, he thought the race was over because he saw the checkered flag. The problem is that he had the race leader bearing down on it to take it. And he hadn't finished the race distance yet.
So very interesting to see what happens now to Alex Khatib, because I don't think you're supposed to take an additional victory lap, now, are you? As Abdel Nasser Al-Hamidi and Tariq Kabuchi work their way into the pit lane there, and as we said, a very good job from both of them. Tariq Kabuchi, 2 podium finishes actually here this weekend, both third place finishes. He would like to be further up, but of course scoring points consistently is what you need, and that's exactly what he did.
You might have thought a 45-minute race with less than a dozen cars in it would start to drag, but that's flown by. That's been really entertaining. Good to see the driving standards so high in the Gulf Radical Cup. Some great performances, particularly from Abdul Nazir Al-Hamidi. That's his highest performance of the season, a second-place finish. He can be very proud of that. Also to Johnny Kazoum for holding off the attentions of Marcus Bamberg throughout. A good win for Alex Khatib. Hopefully that post-race investigation into his move on Al-Hamidi isn't going to cause too many difficulties. Those who want to keep up to date with it, golfradicalcup.com. Obviously, all of the results and the performances from today will be updated.
Coming on next, though, here in the United Arab Emirates, we have the second race of the day and the third race of the weekend for the F4 UAE Championship. We'll see you soon. From myself, Chris, thank you so much, Jake, for joining us up here. We'll see you soon.